So do you feel like there's never enough time, never enough money, never enough love? Well, you're not alone. And that's what we're going to get to talking about today is the state of lack or scarcity and how we can convert that to what we want to term as an abundance mindset and why that's important for your personal health, your personal growth, and especially for your mental. And to get started, I'm going to come to Vince first. And Vince, here's my question to you. We hear this a lot out there now, scarcity mindset. What does that actually mean?
So for me, mindset around scarcity means, well, first and foremost, um, it starts with goals. So what are my goals? And from those goals, I define if this is something that I'm actually achieving those goals or not. Um, Specifically, I would say for myself, money scarcity seems to be the big one. You know, it it's almost like with money scarcity, feeling like you're not able to do the things you want to do, buy the things you want to, what you want, go on trips. Liberty really is the word that kind of comes to mind. Feeling like you have to live within your own means. I feel like a lot of that comes in from my childhood, um, and it's almost like when you think about our grandparents, our parents living through, um, wars, etc., scarcity. Um, I remember my grandparents would, keep a lot of the things that they had because you never know when you might need it. So, to the extreme degree, that could be considered hoarding. So it's almost like, well, I need to hold on to this somehow, some way, or I'm not able to let go of this, or I'm not able to go and do the things that I want to do. So, that money scarcity is the big one. And then, of course, for me, it dives much deeper into other things like achieving the goals that I want related to my profession, or, you know, spending time with my kids so I don't have enough time. That time variable of scarcity is the other big thing that I think that hits me. Feeling like I don't have time, feeling I'm not able to do things for whatever reason. Those are the two big things.
In that, how does that play out from a behavior standpoint? What does that look like?
It ultimately comes down for me, at least, the decisions that I make. So around money in particular, instead of thinking, oh, I'm able to create the abundance, create the wealth, create the whatever it is that I want in my life, I'm not able to yet. So a lot of that is like, oh, I'll buy this or I'll do this later when I have the money, versus recognizing my mindset, which is I can do whatever I want. I can achieve whatever I want. I can go and do that, if I put my intention to it. And that mindset for me has been big because, you know, I set long term goals, and then, um, I'm getting better at setting shorter term goals of chipping away at that and realizing that if I want these, then I can have it. It's just a matter of figuring out different solutions to actually achieve those.
Thanks, Vince. So, Bridget, I want to come to you next, and I have a question. As a mother of five, you had to raise five kids. You got your more formal education, I guess I should say, later in life. So that was obviously a conscious choice and a decision you had to make. As we talk about this thing of lack or scarcity mindset, how did that impact you through those years of having the kids and having that responsibility, and then at some point in life deciding, I'm going to take this huge risk, make a left turn, and go back to college and get a master's degree and things like that. What were you thinking, and how did that play out in your behaviors and your thought processes?
I could say that as far as goals were concerned, looking back on motherhood experience and young adult experience, I really didn't set my own personal goals probably till I was in my 40s, because I had, like you said, children, and I was a single parent for seemed like forever. And so the goal then was to just every day be able to feed my children and be able to provide a home and be able to make sure that these things were done for my children. And so scarcity was a fear, I guess, for me, but I attacked it every day. I attacked it every day, and it never I never sat back and thought, well, I don't have enough. I always thought, what can I do with what I have?
Mm.
Because for me, if I thought about what didn't have enough of, it would stifle me, and then it would keep me still. And I knew that wasn't a position I could take. Every day I had to keep moving. So I could never take some time out and say, okay, I don't have enough. So what do I have to do? I always had the thought process, what am I going to do with what I have? In my 40s, deciding, okay, I have all this, because at that point I felt like I had a lot: wisdom, experience, the how to's, the where to's. And so by the time I was able to start creating some goals for myself, I knew what steps I needed to take and how to take them.
So the experience of life in those early years kind of gave you those foundational pieces, as you said, the how tos, the where tos, etc. I think that's an
Absolutely.
important piece of it too. That having that understanding and that knowledge base and where it comes from, I think really matters. But how you act upon it still is the challenge, right? When we talk about goal setting, and because it technically is just pie in the sky until you actually do
Then
something about it,
you
right?
have to
And I
put some
think that's one
action
of the
behind
things when we're talking about here, getting from that scarcity place to a place of abundance. It in all ways you kind of look at it, it really is just a choice. It's choosing to make the change, but then when you choose to make the change, actually taking the action to support it. And I think that's the most challenging piece of it. Chris, I have a question for you as well. So obviously, you've been entrepreneur throughout your life. You've done some corporate work throughout your life. You have this mix of things that you've experienced, and then obviously even moving to different parts of the country and experiencing different cultures and different ways of life. Sometimes that can put you in this place of feeling like I've got to hold on to my little world and whatever's inside of my little world and not take quote unquote risks. And I know we've talked about that before in some ways. Would you say that risk aversion is kind of tied in some ways to either feeling a state of lack or scarcity, or is it something else?
The short answer is yes. Um, a lot of things have contributed to my lack of. Um, I think I think a lot of that is centered around my childhood experiences, um, the the adult figures that I had as models and role models and such. And this is something because we talk about it all the time, but this is an area that I'm really starting to really turn the dirt over recently, especially in light of the most recent death in my family. That has really kind of opened me up a lot, and I think on the surface, when people see me, and Ben and Brian, you guys are around me a lot, so you see, you're starting to see that starting to come out and manifest in me. But I am really coming. What's happened is, and I'm probably going to go all over the board here for a second because I'm really trying to figure my own thoughts out in this. Is, I've been working on, you said we mentioned risk aversion in the beginning, but I've been working on my goal setting, and really setting some higher end goals. I think we when you talk about goals, there's safe goals, safely attainable goals, and then there are goals where you really got to stretch yourself out and you really got to, you know, take a risk and
Mhm.
and more importantly, understanding what's on either side. So there's I can go through this process, I can give it my all, and I can on the surface win, or I can go through all of this and I don't get the prize that I think I want or deserve or need, but that doesn't mean I lost. And because in a lot of cases, what happens is and this is, let me back up a second. I'm an only child. Okay. So I'm not used to sharing toys with a lot of people. Okay. So I get a little funny sometime about my toys and sometimes with my friends. And it's just a product of what it is. You know, I spend less time um, getting caught up in that, and spend more time just, coming to the realization that's just the way it is, and I've got to kind of shape and navigate my past and stuff like that. The biggest thing for me right now is just I'm I've over this last year I've set some really I've come to some awakening points where I've decided, as we talk, I'm on the back nine of my life. And if I don't start to make some of these things that were subconsciously important to me now consciously important to me, then it's just never going to happen. Now some of these things may not happen, but the reality is I've got to, at least before I meet my maker, give it a serious try. I mean, a serious let's go for it. And a lot of that requires me to get out of my own way. I'm the biggest detractor of anything good that's going to come into my life. I'm the biggest detractor for anything that I can make and create. I'm the biggest detractor. The areas that I've suffered in my life are, namely, at the top of the list is relationships. I have not had what I consider the bestest of role models in the relationship department, because the people that are in front of me have failed miserably at relationships. And that doesn't mean they're not wonderful people, because they are wonderful people. It just means they suck at relationships. And summarily, I've sucked at relationships at certain points. It's all. I saw something yesterday where a guy was saying that, it was a little short, and it was a man and it's obviously men versus women. And it was like, how come guys chase so, say they chase so passionately, and then you get to a point where you get to the prize point, and then they kind of lose interest. And that's not me, but what I gleaned from that is that I only go so far in a relationship because of the because of all the failures I've seen. My mind says they all fail. And that's something I've been working on cultivating, is a different mindset that all relationships don't fail. I've got hundreds of examples around me of people that have actually made it. Our good friend Gerald, 40 years this brother's been with his wife. And actually, if we're being honest, I would have thought she would have left his ass before he would leave her ass. But anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, you I'm really in the habit of trying to put more positive examples in front of me, and really trying to reverse that mindset that all relationships fail, because they don't all fail. I just have the belief I've had the belief that they all fail. And I'm really motivated, and I don't know what the other word. I'm very motivated to change that. I'm very motivated to, whatever my next relationship is, that I make sure that I do everything in my power to make it work at a very minimum from my end. But I'll also want to see how I can help my partner to make it good on her end. So, that requires some heavy, I realize that what that requires is some heavy lifting on my part, which is, from my history, I can lift heavily, but I only lift so much. And I kind of put the onus on the other person, and I think that's gotten me some pretty less desirable results than I was looking for. And at the end of the day, I'm looking for peace.
It's interesting, 'cause I want to chime in right there, because what you hit on right there when you were talking about all relationships, and it's one of the areas that you struggle with, is with the relationship piece. And then you were saying the reality is, which is the truth side of it, that all relationships don't fail. But your perspective and your realities, based on your personal experience and what you've seen, and the past relationships of parents or grandparents or whoever else it might have been in your family, says the opposite, that relationships just don't work. They fail. They suck at them, right? So that's that dichotomy that we have to work our way through sometimes, is the truth of the matter versus the fact. And the fact is our reality of how we see it, right? And that's a very true thing. So it's good to see that you're now, peeling an onion back some, to get back to that truth side of it, which is all relationships don't fail, right? And so you have to bring that energy and that mindset into those new opportunities. Because if you keep bringing that same old mindset, then guess what kind of results you're going to get? That's the end of that. Vince, I want to come to you because that's a good transition for something else I want to talk about. When we're talking about scarcity, the lack state of mind, specifically the money, which you brought up, and then also I want to talk about time. Why is it that we feel like we have to hoard it? Um, because a lot of the times it's like, well, I have this opportunity and I could go do this, or I could take this trip, or whatever it might be. But then you say, ooh, but I got this nest of money here, and I just want to sit on this nest and not actually do. But then all we do is complain that I can't do. You actually have the resource, but for whatever reason we choose to sit on that nest. What's that about? What is that type of behavior rooted in?
For me, it's really about, I would say, on the flip side of that is a growth mindset. So on a scarcity mindset is recognizing, I would say, risks. So when I'm thinking about risks and I have the means and I can totally do this, yet I still hold myself back. And I would say, a lot of that stems from, various different fears or limiting beliefs of oneself, myself. So, fear of failure is the big one that seems to come up. Fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough. So, in achieving those goals, recognizing that, especially me in the past, gung ho, want to do it, want to achieve it, want to conquer the world, and then feeling like, oh, I might fail. And once I have that, that limiting belief come up, then there's the idea of like, well, shucks, maybe I should wait for this or do this or all these other little, little icons come up and kind of keep whispering in one's ears, like, okay, well, what happens? Well, no matter what, if you have a goal or if I have a goal, and achieving that, it doesn't really matter because I'm making steps. I'm moving every day. Chris always talks about, it's measured in inches. That's what progress is. And seeing how I can achieve those no matter what. The Thomas Edison quote kind of comes to mind right now. It's not that he's failed 10,000 times. He's figured out a different way of doing things. And I think that's really where, getting out of that scarcity mindset and focusing on that growth mindset is really key. It's not easy to do though, because of all of those experiences growing up, all those little stories, all those little things you would tell, you heard as a child. Oh, here's what you can achieve. Oh, what does success look like? Oh, what is failure? Is failure an option?
That's very true. And you mentioned Thomas Edison in there, and that's a great example. So you think about people like that who have that perseverance to just keep pushing forward, even in the face of rejection. And I think that's a key piece of it. Just building that fortitude within yourself to take those risks, take the hits when they fail, because failure is part of the whole equation. But being strong enough within self-belief and self-esteem to be able to manage your way through that is a key component. And I think that's a very important piece to see. That said, I want to ask Bridget a question, because Bridget, you're in education. So you're seeing the younger generations. You've worked at the high school level. You're now at the grade school level. You yourself have recently, in the last, 5-10 years, been a college student. So you've been in that environment. What are you typically seeing the tolerance levels for risks, them understanding what risks are about? Is it more of a abundance, I can do anything in the world mindset for our kids today, or are they being very conservative and really operating out of that state of lack?
I think it's both sides of the coin, actually. And I would say from ages 18 and up, the young adults for sure are just living off of I can do anything. Technology, social media shows that There's no the risk is not taken into consideration at all. But then also there are some risks taken into consideration from our young adults because they can see their counterparts or they see the things that are happening around the world. So they're starting to kind of horn in on reality because of the things that are going on around the world. Now, in a high school level, it's Superman. I can do anything. I want to be a police officer and I want to be a content creator and I want to do all these things. Just like the mindset of a third grader. Just because they see it done on social media, and that plays a big part of the mindset of our young adults and our teenagers. Just what they see other people doing. Now, for me as a teacher, I can really grab hold to that, and it also empowers me sometimes because that you kind of look at what people are doing and what people have done. You can do that. It is possible. So I sometimes it empowers me to believe that I can do more than I'm doing. But also, you do have to remind yourself that everything is not reality, and social media certainly is not always reality. So I think that our young people are moving from a lack of from a standpoint of I can do anything and there's no scarcity because I can invent something if I run out of something else, and that's true. We see it all the time, but because they do have teachers and professors to kind of reel them back in and say, okay, I know you say you want to do all these things, but what does that look like, and what are the steps to take for that, and what's the goals, and you have to put these things, some steps to that, and a process to that. They kind of see reality. For me, I would say because I was a college student, and it was almost 10 years ago, actually. Um, Looking at college students and me being a seasoned student, I never thought about if I couldn't and what would happen if what would happen if I did. I always felt like I could do it. And I don't know if that came from past experiences of just having to do it. And so now knowing I can do it, or what. I never was I'm gonna hold this because I didn't have anything really to hold. So when I had it, I thought, well, if I use it and if I spend it, what is the gain from it? And if I saw a gain, I used it and I spent it because then time passed and I'm like, you know what? I was scared back then. And here we are 2 weeks later, nothing really happened. It was, everything is still the same. So I took those experience of the no regret. That's what I call it. The no regret experience. And I use that in my life. And I also empower my young teen. I have teen girl mentees. I also empower them as well for no regrets. And you look at the cost, and if it's not gonna cost you, then do it because life is but a vapor. It's but a vapor. So, and that's how I look at everything. And that doesn't do much for my bank account. It doesn't do much for my bank account. However, 2 weeks later, I don't have a regret, and it's 2 weeks later, and here we are, facing something else, or more money is coming in, or more resources are coming in, and so I try to teach others to not always hold on to it because you never know the experience that you can have from it.
Yeah. So would you say that, Bridget, in that instance, that's you're manifesting some of those things down the road? It's like, I know I want to do X. I have Y now to take me in that direction. Once I get there, I don't know what that's really going to look like, but because you're open and you're putting it out to the universe to say, this is the direction I'm going, do you feel that some things come to you just based on having that open mindset and allowing yourself to go there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me tell you why. People say now, just because of the things that are going to, you just don't never know what's going to happen. And I always say, we never knew what was going to happen. I never knew. Like, when did we stop knowing? I mean, when did we start knowing? And I think people always, had everything, some people plan it out. And so it always goes that way. But when my life, it was never that way, and so I never knew what was going to happen from day to day. So that when it happened, it's okay, that's good. And so yeah, I absolutely agree with you because my mind is open. And like what he said, fear, I have no fear. because I've lived through that fear already, and I saw what happens with the fear. It does hold you, it bounds you, and so I've lived through that. So yeah, I do think that because you have an open mind and you can manifest that even in your thoughts. And a lot of people say, well, you need to speak it, and that's true. But if you manifest it in your thoughts, and what's the worst that can happen in your head? What's the worst that can happen? Oh, that can happen. Okay, well then if that happens, then I'll have that, and that definitely brought me to where I am. Definitely, because I will take a trip in a minute, and I will in 2 weeks will pass and I'll get a paycheck again. And so this, and I will step out on faith in different areas of my life, in not knowing how it's going to happen or what's going to come from it. But what the one thing I do is know it's going to come from it is experience and memories, bad or good. Bad experiences are good experiences. Bad memories are good memories. I know those two things are going to come from it, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Absolutely. No, that's good. And that's why I wanted to ask that, because I think that's an important piece of it when we talk about being willing to open ourselves up and communicate out to the world what it is we're about, where we want to go, the things we want to see, do, and experience in life. Um, there's only one person driving that bus. One. I don't, regardless of what's going on, as you said earlier, we don't know what's going to happen regardless, right? Who's in office, who's doing this, what the stock market does, about Bitcoin, yada, yada, yada. We have no clue. All we can do is make the decisions based on our true realities as we know them, what's rooted in us, and where that all came from. And hopefully try to do some work to grow past the limitations that we've had, as you talked about with your fear and how now you're at a state of, I got nothing to fear. I've been through that, all of that already. But getting there, was there some scraped knees and some bumps on the head? Yeah, 100%. But
And like what
that's
Chris
the,
said, it's me versus me
yeah.
all the time.
So that's a great way to put it. Sorry, we'll get right back to the video in just a second. Just wanted to ask a quick question. What's stopping you from living, loving, and leading your best possible life? Do you feel disconnected, out of sync, unsure of really what it is you want to accomplish, what your true purpose is, and where you want to go with your future? Well, the ASCENT Coaching Program is here to help. We help you get in sync with your true beliefs, your true understanding, your true values. And from that, we help you transform from the inside out and move yourself towards the life you really want. If that sounds of interest to you, please click the link below. You can schedule a free, no obligation consultation where we'll simply get clear on the things you want to accomplish in life, maybe get a better understanding of why certain things haven't worked the way you feel that they should. And from there, we can move forward to help you become the best possible you can be. Let's get back to the video. So, Chris, I want to ask this question because we know we've talked about this in the past too. This is where we're getting into um, that true self belief part of it, where you feel as though you are actually in control, right? And that's the place. A lot of the times we feel like we need to operate from, right? Everything is under my thumbs. I've got it under control, which is never actually true because, as we just said, we don't know what's going to happen. So, from that standpoint, Chris, how have you started to kind of peel back from that a little bit? Because you've had to, as you said earlier, open yourself up, be more receptive to concepts, ideas, opportunities, places, things, everything that maybe in the past you would have chosen to put the blinders on. How's that transition been for you?
Not as difficult as I thought it would be. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't have its moments of difficulty, but it's a lot. First and foremost, understanding what the outcomes and options are is at the top of the list. So, in other words, we move. Let's say we move past the point of I've got these audacious goals. I'm gonna use that word. That's from an old podcast. I have those audacious goals that I've finally set for me, not for anybody else. I was thinking about this the other day. My folks wanted me to go down a certain path in my life, and at 19, I said, not happening. I'm gonna go completely left. Not even with no plan. It just felt good to go left. To be my own man all of a sudden, to try to figure out what my own man was, because I didn't know. I lived a life as as a youth of constantly being told where to go, what to do, how to behave, how to talk, how to dress, what to eat, what to feel. I mean, the whole 9 yards. It was never mine. And I have been, when I was going through the synopsis, I was thinking, and it said that the childhood, your background, and hold on, the childhood experiences. And I got to be honest with you, and this is especially in light of the fact that I just lost my auntie, who was a major influence in my life. For those of our viewers who don't know, my aunt was a famous writer, larger than life. Um, she cast a very, very large shadow uh, over a lot of people, and that's great on good on her. And I'm not saying I didn't benefit from it. I'm not saying that I didn't have some absolutely wonderful experiences behind it, but the negative effect is something that I've been trying to get out from underneath for a very long time. Um, and it's funny because as my elders have dropped off, my mother died 18 years ago. That represented a speed bump in my. Believe it, I love my mother. Don't get me wrong, love her to death. My mother had some serious control issues, and she tried to control me. And obviously, they say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. So consequently, my motto was I'm going to control. So my relationships, I'm going to control them. Well, you start to figure out, as I alluded to earlier, that my success rate, my failure rate is higher than my success rate. And it's because a lot of that has to do with that. A lot of that has to do with not having a consistent male role model in my presence to tell me how to behave as a man, a quote unquote man. So these are a lot of things that I've been trying to undo, because it has become very apparent to me that these are things that hold me down. These are things that keep me literally separated from my dreams, my goals, my aspirations. And for those in the room who know me, I've got some pretty good goals, aspirations, and dreams that I'm still at my age trying to conquer. One of them is the relationship front. I obviously I made a pivot about a year ago. Um, I'm now working for a corporation, which I'd worked as an entrepreneur for the better part of almost 3 decades. Um, I started uh, teaching recently graduated high school students, marginalized kids. Let me be clear on this: marginalized kids who come from neighborhoods that we all would recognize and have been in and been a part of, and to see that whole dynamic play out and what it does to me as far as me dealing with my own childhood and stuff like that, because I haven't, up until the last few years, I haven't had to look at my childhood. Well, based on what the new goals that I've set, the new dream, the not new dreams, the dreams that I've always had and never allowed to bubble up, that's affected that. You know, you think of, am I good enough? Am I deserving? And these are all questions that I've had in the course of my time, and especially over these last 3 to 5 years. Let's just use the 3 year mark, that I've questioned myself. Am I good enough? What I've really worked on is trying to be a good person. And I know that that doesn't pay the bills all the time, but I've have come to believe that if through all of this, the ups, the downs, the goods, the bads, if I remain a good person and remain motivated for the right reasons, then I have a good chance, and I said a good chance, of recognizing and realizing my dreams, goals, and aspirations.
100% true. That's a good realization to come to and to have that. So, Vince, I want to go back to one thing too. We're talking, and we've talked a little bit about this in the past, about getting your mindset shifted from that scarcity mindset, getting it to be talking about abundance. So that said, again, I want to have you give us from your chair, what does abundance mean? Because again, it's a term, it gets thrown out. We could always go to Webster and ask what Webster says, but in this context, when somebody says you have an abundance mindset, what does that look like and feel like?
For me, at the heart of it comes down to how I feel about myself. And as Chris was alluding to, feeling and knowing deep, like truly knowing that I am enough. I have everything that I need. I don't need to look for external validation, and talking about the relationship side, the love side, that seems to be something that I see a lot of, where finding love validates my own existence or my own value. On the scarcity mindset for, financial, feeling like I need to always be chasing. You hear this a lot where, more money, more problems. Yeah, because again, whether you make a lot or a little, those same issues will always come up, because you're always feeling like you need more, versus recognizing that nope, you're totally good with what you have, if that's what you want. And I think that's really the big difference, is being able to understand what is it that I really want in life, and I like to use this analogy, especially in talking about the mindset, where when I think about my last day on this planet, for all of us, we have no idea when that is. We always think we have more time. We have no idea when that is. What is it that I will think I wish I had more of? Of course, it's always time. And it's more experiences, more shared hugs with my kids, more interactions with the people that I surround myself that I love. It's definitely not more money. So, really thinking about those values, and then saying, okay, so what am I doing in my life that is contributing to more of that in my life? And I think that's where the mindset around scarcity really kind of looks its evil head, where culturally society is thinking you should be doing this. Our parents are saying this, everyone else is saying this is what success looks like. And again, it's that beingness of I am enough, and I can create whatever I want. So abundance is, for me, realizing that if I want that motorcycle, I will go and get that motorcycle. Well, how do I do that? Well, I don't really know, and it's throwing it out to the universe. It's setting that goal, and it's basically having the universe help me achieve that goal. And it's fascinating once you've made that declaration out there and you've told it to the world, how things seem to fall in place. It's the same thing with money. It's the same thing with careers. It's the same thing with love too. Being able to trust that, there are people out there that are right for me. And it starts with me. It always starts with me. Because if I'm always thinking that I'm going to find someone that will make me better, or, will love me the way that I'll love them, and all these other things, that's where the trouble comes into on scarcity. It's feeling like the answer is there, not here.
So interesting. For me, when I think about abundance, and this is something that I kind of came across a couple of decades ago, just in some of the leadership training and other things that I was doing at that time. And this is where we're talking about deposits and withdrawals from not necessarily just a financial standpoint, but just in general. And that's just basically saying you can't take out more than you put in, right? That's how it works. So from an abundance standpoint, if you want an abundant relationship, well, guess what? You need to put into that relationship more than you try to take out of that relationship. right? And that can be applied to anything. It could be your career, it could be your, raising your children, it could, whatever it might be. Just try to shift your mindset, I think, in that way. And that's one of the things that I try to focus on is I want to have an abundance of something. I need to be engaged and participate, but also be willing to put into it what I would like to see the growth to be or what I want to get out of it, because that's the only way that you're really going to have a productive, abundant type environment around you, is to be engaged and to pursue and to, as you said, Vince, open it up to the universe and allow things to get to manifest in your direction. But that's a mindset shift for a lot of people because of that state of scarcity and lack. So it's always interesting how sometimes we just need to trust and say, let's reinvest in whatever it might be. And I'm using money as an example because people can relate to that. But in this forum, one of the things I think we all do is reinvest in ourselves from a growth standpoint, right? Helping make you better, make you more whole. And that's also something I think we all need to be focused to and be realistic about, is taking the time to reinvest in yourself so that you can be more holistic, more real, more grounded, more authentic. And Bridget, I'm going to come to you with that because I know that's something we have talked about a lot, and that's the authenticity piece. And with this, why is that important when you talk about an abundance mindset and being authentic?
Well, when I heard when I was reading the notes and thought about abundance, abundance is in the hand of the beholder,
Correct.
basically. And for me, and as I said at the beginning, I always felt like I had enough because I knew what to do with what I had, right? And so, in terms of a growth mindset and me in abundance, it just keeps growing because I keep experiencing these times in my life where things shift, and so I've always had to look at what was that lesson. It's always a lesson. My son passed away 4 months ago. 4 months ago, my oldest son, and for the 3 months before he passed away, he was in the hospital, and I had to ask every day, what is the lesson in this? Because I didn't want to miss it. I feel like in my 20s and in my 30s, I missed a lot of lessons. And just like in school, if you don't get it, you have to repeat it. And so I had to repeat it. And so I didn't want to miss the lessons in any of this. And so every day, instead of being sad or whatever everybody else was doing, because I felt like I was on a spotlight because everybody was watching me and how I moved, because I moved pretty much like moved before that, and pretty much how I move now, and that's out of a place of peace, out of a place of happiness, out of a place of I don't know. You probably, Brian, can describe my personality, and I never changed, and that was because I was always focused on what's the lesson in this, because I knew it was something. I knew it was something. And so when all of that happened and I had to go back and review what we do, and I guess I take everything from a teacher standpoint. I had to go back and review what it was that I learned. Um, I still saw the abundance of that. I mean, it was some things, some little nuggets dropped the whole time. And so my life has always been about what I have and what I can do with what I have. And so I never saw lack, even when people saw, poor Bridget, what is she doing with all those kids, and how is she making it? And she's moving from place to place to place to place, and she's, having to, not go to school and then go back to school and graduate in college at 50 or 48 and with your master's, and then you start to then I got into my profession, which I am an educator at 50. And so, all these things that people looked at as, lack, I looked at it as lessons and abundance of resources and abundance of knowledge now and wisdom, even that I have had to depart into young women and young ladies. So I can describe abundance in a lot of different ways, a lot of different ways. And I live in a way that nobody really probably understands, because it's a day to day thing, and it's an exciting thing. And people always ask me, are you sure you're okay? Because I think some people think I'm kind of crazy. Um, are you sure you're okay? Because you just seem so happy, or are you just like this on social media, and then you go in your room and crash? And I had to start asking myself, am I okay? And start to say some things out loud, because sometimes people around you can make you feel a certain way and make you feel like you don't have enough, or make you feel like you have too much, or make you feel like you're weighed down. And I had to ask myself, but I was okay. And all the lessons that I learned, I was writing those things down. And lo and behold, I'm going to run into those times again. It may not be the same situation or the same experience, but it'll require those same lessons that
Yeah,
I learned.
absolutely. No, that's a very true thing. Bridget, you and I have talked, and obviously we've known each other for ever and ever. And true, that's Bridget. I mean, it's one of those things. Well, Bridget is being Bridget. So, and that's why I talk about that authenticity piece with you, because you are definitely one of the most authentic, consistently authentic people that I know. And that's a compliment, because in this world with so much going on, and I know when Brandon was in the hospital and we talked, and it's like, how you doing? And she's like, I'm doing the best I can with what I got, as what we just talked about. And but that also all goes back to what we were saying a little while ago about we don't know. We want to know. We want to feel like we know, or feel like we have some control, but we really don't.
That word authentic is so broad, because we were groomed, or I was, or other people that I know were groomed to, you be a certain way at work, then you be a certain way at home, and then you're a certain way at play. But I'm the same, and then a certain way at church. I'm the
Mhm.
same everywhere I go. And so I never thought that would come back around and be like this universal thing now. And so now it's universal, being your authentic self wherever you are. And I was like, man, I knew that was going to catch on one day. I knew it was going to catch on one day, because I was always the same. And people would say, are you like this at home? Are you like this at work? Are you like this at church? And I'm like, if you know me, you know I am the same. I don't change. I'm the same way everywhere I go. And that might have been in the past something maybe that I maybe should have worked on. But had I worked on it and changed my personality in different environments, then I wouldn't know who I was. And then when everybody started to be authentic, then I have to find myself again. So when people started saying, "Oh, I'm authentic now, I found myself," I'm like, "Well, I was already there. I'm just glad everybody else is doing it now."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the other thing I want to talk about is we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but the if versus when, right? And this goes back to time, because I think that's the other factor that plays into this state of lack or scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. And again, when you're young, you feel invincible. A, B, you feel like you see somebody who's 40 and you go, "Oh my God, you're 40. That's freaking ancient," right? Because you feel like you have so much time. But that clock gets to ticking, and time gets by you pretty faster than you think it will. So I think that's the other important piece of it too, is don't waste the time, whether it's developing yourself, doing the things you want to do in life. Get out, get engaged, set a plan, and understand that might you have to adjust or change, shift the plan. Yes, and don't let that get you down, because things are going to happen. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. There's the unknown pieces that happen to us all. But when we talk about time, like I said, there's the if this happens, this might happen, this could happen. Great, we all know that. But it's that when, which is, as Vince talked about earlier, the day you meet your maker. We don't know when that's going to happen. So live to the fullest as best you can while you have the time. And the other thing you hear people talk about is that I don't have enough time, the lack of time. And again, I think this comes down to mindset, because we all get how many hours in a day? 24. None of us has 27, 30. We all get that same 24 hours in a day. So why is it that some people can seem to do more with that 24 hours versus others who can't? So Vince, I'm going to kind of pose that question to you because we've kind of skirted this in the past, just about managing your time. And I know part of that is definitely tied to goals, but then how do you then put a framework together to manage your way through it so you can be productive and efficient?
You know, I think the first and foremost is recognizing I have enough time, or I have more time than I can do. And then the second part of that is really prioritizing what are the things I'm currently doing in my life that are adding value. I think for so much of it is you're just doing it because you've always done it, or you have to do it, or it has to be done this way, or whatnot. And that's a big thing, because now you're actually deciding. It's like Marie Kondo: does this add value in my life or not? And a lot of that's relationships. Recognizing that are the relationships that are in my life adding value. And so much of it is you know uh, being surrounding myself with people that are supporting unconditionally. So, like with Bridget and her authentic self, are there individuals that are actively supporting? I'm supporting them, they're supporting me. There's no quid pro quo, there's no zero sum mentality where, you know, oh, well, for me to win, you got to lose. So that's a big thing too. And then the last and final one, I think, for me in getting more time out there is asking for support. And that kind of bridges into the surrounding yourself with a community of folks that are supporting you. It's, I think for most of the things that the challenges that arise in my life, I have a choice. I can either stay internal and I can get in my own head and I can think about all the things that I coulda, shoulda, woulda. I can be miserable, or I can be like, okay, you know what? This is what's happened. Good, bad, right or wrong. And how long do I want to stay in this? Is it going to be a minute? Is it going to be an hour? Is it going to be a day, a week, a month? and and for me, asking for support is really the big thing. That I would say in the beginning of my personal growth journey, that was a challenging thing. Of course, now you bring in the whole ego. Oh well,
Mhm.
I should be able to do this myself, or I'd be looked at as a failure or not enough. And then it's just like, no, here's my goal. How I ask for support, I think, is the big thing, and then doing it more and more and more. It's like, okay, I need this done. Here's my goal. Uh, is there anyone in my circle or circle of circles that can support me in achieving this goal? And a lot of times, the goals change. That the overall direction of where I want to go stays the same. How I get there, the different mechanisms, they change. And that's the thing about that too. It's just getting them out of my own head and recognizing that, you know, this is where I want to be. And there's many, many different ways. And it always comes down to the relationship. Always in the day. Life is about relationships. So, for me, the mindset, having that abundance is within me. If I'm abundant and I see everyone else is abundant, then I will be able to achieve those goals and create more time and do more and level up. And every time I'm put in a situation where I feel like, oh my God, I'm not in control. Well, it's just like, again, as you said, you're never in control. So then it's like, okay, well, how can I schedule and do things more and commit to those? Like actually say, hey, I set this goal. I made this promise. I made this agreement, and I'm going to hold that. And then, or I'm going to say, you know what? This is not something that I can actually support or I can actually execute on.
Thanks for sharing that, Vince. So, Chris, I'm going to come to you because I want to ask this question. It's obviously, as you said, this last 2 to 3 years, it's been a transitional space for you. And two things that I've really seen you kind of lean into, and I want to just have you kind of explain and share how that's been working and how you got to that space. One is going to be gratitude, right? And then the second part of that is paying it forward, because I think there's been some shifts in you in both those spaces to where you are seeing, showing more gratitude, and then definitely a mindset shift of wanting to be that difference maker in ways of paying it forward. How did you work your way through that transition? What was your thought process? And then how is that feeding you right now? What are you getting from it? Oh, sorry, real quick. We'll get right back to the video, but I have a request from you. If you're getting value from this video, please click the subscribe button and also click like. And maybe even share this with some of your friends. Also, join our community by making a comment, sharing your thoughts, your experiences that are helping you to live, love, and lead your best possible life. That's it. Thanks for subscribing, and let's get back to the video.
Well, first and foremost, what I've really done is, and this is from taking a look at the overall, the totality of my life as a whole up until today, to this moment in time. And I've really started to work on being more grateful for the things that I have, for the experiences that I've been afforded, the great people that I've been fortunate enough to come into my life, and keeping that in the forefront of good days or bad days. So even on my worst day, I really try to start out with the day leaning into the gratefulness of it all. That even in difficult times or discourse with other people, there is still something to be grateful for. Because at the end of the day, I could have nobody around me, to argue with or to disagree with, or to, make amends with and come to similar conclusions. Role models and people around me that I know care about me. Sometimes when people care about you, sometimes it doesn't always come off as they care about you, because sometimes they have to tell you about yourself. You know what I mean? And in the past, I haven't been good with that. I mean, I literally have looked at it as, you're coming at me, or, you don't want me to succeed. You don't want me to be happy. Well, it's the exact opposite. And what I've also had to come in touch with is, there in most cases there's positive outcomes, but then there's what I like to call less than positive outcomes. I didn't say negative outcomes. I said less than positive outcomes, because I really try to find a soft landing spot to where it doesn't wreck my overarching plan that I have for me, all my goals and dreams. And even I keep saying this, and I know I've been kind of cloak and dagger about it lately. Is, I've got some stuff that I'm working on it, that are in my personal relationship life, that I'm navigating with help. I mean, I have some help, but the reality is, some of this I have to, and I'm not alone from the standpoint I'm alone, but the reality is, it's a path I've got to get on myself and walk independently, and see what those paths, ultimately bring to my life. And, with that, reinforcing my belief system that I am good enough, I am deserving of. These are things that I go back and forth with, and I've got to keep reinforcing and reminding myself, as well as having people like you, Brian, and Vince, and you, Bridget, and some of the other mentors and people that help to keep the guardrails up for my life. And I'm really blessed. And then, we talk about the authenticity piece, and that's something I've been really trying to lean into, because, I come from a mindset of, who cares what my opinion is? Why should anybody listen to me? That's the way I've always been. That's the way I was raised. That's the kind of the way I was made to feel as a child. Like, your opinion doesn't really matter. We're the experts, and this is what you should do. I've been trying to erase those tapes for years, and that's if it, in a lot of family dynamics, that's the boogeyman that people don't talk about. That your folks, while trying to love you, literally stunt your growth, because they're trying to, bubble, as I like to say, bubble wrap you, so nothing gets to you. This is the thing I had with my daughter's mom, that one of the reasons I left her was because she wanted to be that. She was the original helicopter parent. She wanted to wrap my baby in bubble wrap and make sure nothing affected her. I'm like, that's just not how life works. And I had to dig my heels in and say, she needs to go out here and skin her knees and understand that the pavement doesn't give. It's not like a mattress, you know what I mean, or a trampoline or something like that. When you fall, that shit hurts. So just all of those dynamics, because I'm self admittedly a very deep thinking and feeling man. So I get touched. I'm sensitive, to be honest with you. Let me be honest. I'm sensitive. I'm a sensitive individual. I've always been a sensitive individual, but I'm trying to grow through that and not allow my sensitivity to affect the goodness that I'm due. Because I really am, when I'm there and I'm really being, critically thinking, I deserve goodness. I deserve to win. I deserve to be in a loving relationship. I deserve for somebody to look at me and say, "Chris, you're okay." You know what I mean? I may not like how you move every day and every hour of the day, but you, at the end of the day, you're good people, and we know you have good intent, and that's how I approach most of my days. It's a huge responsibility dealing with, you, and I know, Bridget, you understand this as an educator, dealing with 17, 18, 19-year-old minds, trying to get them. And I don't take that lightly. It's exhaustive work, but I understand that it's a calling. I understand that it's something that it's a responsibility. And for whatever reason, God has put me in this position, and I better not take it lightly. And honestly, I don't take it lightly, but I am still in a period of adjustment. I'm in a period of adjustment for these, for working in corporate America again. I'm in a period of adjustment for working in these educational initiatives that I wholeheartedly believe in. I'm still in an adjustment period of me saying, Chris, you deserve so much more than you've gotten, and that doesn't, and not necessarily translate into, from a monetary standpoint. I'm talking about the abundance of life, the abundance of love, the abundance of caring, those things, those mushy things that men don't want to talk about all the time. But I'm here to tell you, I'm willing to talk about it, and I'm willing to be honest about it. And this is where I get emotional. I just hope that I'm afforded the time to achieve these initiatives and goals and dreams that are very much very important to me on a lot of levels. And I figure if I just get up and be who I am, that I will achieve the success that I desire. And moments
And I,
like these are important for me moving forward.
I just want to give some encouragement to you, into the world. You will not leave here until you're done doing what it is that you're called to do. I believe that wholeheartedly. A lot of times, and then, car accidents, blah, 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 things happen. But if something is in you and it's always been in you and God put that in you, and I don't want to get all religious and spiritual, but you won't leave here until it's done. Because the only person that was supposed to do it was you. That was your purpose. That's why it's called purpose. Anything that has a purpose is for that thing. And this, whatever that purpose is, your purpose is for that. And only you can do it. And so you won't leave until you do it. And every day that you wake up in the morning is your opportunity to do that thing. And so stay encouraged about that. It's for you to do. Nobody else is going to be able to do it. And so it's your thing to do. It's your thing to do. And while I have the floor, I wanted to, before I forget, because I'm a little old, I wanted to just kind of chime into it. So he said something about things and having enough time to do all the things. And what I have, just from listening to other people and from other little empowerment sessions I've been in, sometimes we have to get rid of the things in our day. What are the things? Because if you look at the things, some of the things that are in our day, we really don't need those. And if we get rid of the things and not the goals or the purpose, then we'll have the 24 hours and we'll have more time than we thought. Because for me, during my personal growth, when I got rid of all those other little things that really wasn't for me to do, it wasn't mine. I had a lot of time left, and it was almost like, okay, what I'm supposed to do now? It was the things that God had already ordained for me to do, or the plans that I had made, or the goals that I had set that I just kept escaping from because I had put all those other things in it, as well as for people. In January of 2024, December 31st into January, I wrote texts and emails to several people, was I'm leaving you. And this was just a broad, this is not just personal, just not an intimate relationship. This is personal, friendships, any kind of ship that I didn't need to be in. I left them, and it didn't serve me anymore. And I had to sit with myself. And for me, being the transparent person as I am, I would think, okay, I'm gonna be lonely after I do this. Nobody's gonna like me. And I had to be like, well, that's why they don't like you. That's why you are cutting these people off. If you think about the word like and support. So I did this, I have to leave you letter to some people. And I thought my circle would get smaller and I would be about, but actually it didn't get smaller. It changed and it got bigger, because then the people that were there were for me were gravitating, could get, I guess if you kind of look at the analogy in your head, it was space now for the people that were for me. And there was space now for the people that could support me and that were there for me, where it wasn't space before because I had things and people that didn't serve me. And so that's how I look at life now. And so I want to encourage anybody to, when they think about the time that they have, or the people or the relationships, cipher through that. I'm doing this like a sifter. Cipher through that thing and get away. I don't know. I'm a girl and I do that. Cipher it through that and get rid of all that other stuff. And then what'll be in front of you is this beautiful portrait of the things that you're supposed to do and what you're gonna do, and the list that you have that is important in your purpose versus the things.
Yep.
That's what I want to
Yep.
say.
Thanks for sharing that, Bridget. Fun as you said that, because, but I think it was probably 3 years ago now when we were first doing some of the podcasts together. And I remember coming into that year, your theme was I'm matching energies, right? And that's kind of the same thing, right? Basically saying if you're not giving the type of energy or matching my energy, or I'm like, all I'm doing is feeding you and you're not giving me anything back, then I'm now going to feed you exactly what you've been feeding me. And that's
And I
how
did that. I
relationships.
did that
Yeah, yes,
in
you
the top
did.
of
I
2024.
recall.
I did that.
Yeah.
Wait,
So
do you
that's
guys know
awesome.
the tuning fork on matching energies? Have you heard that story,
Yes. Yes. I have.
Bridget?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so everyone is vibrating at a certain frequency. So everything vibrates, right? Wavelengths, energy. And so what I heard you say is that some of these individuals that were vibrating, so our goal is to vibrate higher. So think of it as almost like enlightenment. So when you're vibrating higher, there's this frequency which is, they call it God frequency, or these other ones where you're attaining this level of vibration. And when you're at the lower end, you're vibrating lower. So it's just different. So if you walk into a room of tuning forks, and so you're a tuning fork, everyone else is a tuning fork. And if you hit a tuning fork in a room of tuning forks, what happens? And not everything vibrates. It's only the tuning forks that are vibrating at that frequency that vibrate, which is really interesting. Just think about that. It's like, okay, so now if I want to be with these other tuning forks that are vibrating higher, and I'm here with all these tuning forks that are lower vibration, then I need to change rooms. I need to move to that room. And that's what you just did. You're matching that energy, that frequency with all these other folks, and just saying, you know what? And that's really huge. Like I think about what you just did. It's like writing a letter. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's something that I feel like as an avoidant definitely don't do enough of. Like, hey, this is the reason why I'm leaving you.
And I stated the reasons, and it was. I mean, I'm sure the person that got the letter was like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know she really cared. Or I didn't know she really, knew, or I didn't know she really thought that way, and I didn't know she recognized that." And yeah. I saw it. I didn't say anything, but here you go. I'm leaving, and I had to do it with friendships, and that's hard with women, and especially when you think you have a close circle of women and that you've always had, and that's what we do. We hold on to people since eighth grade, and when you say, oh, they're not serving me anymore, you don't want to. You don't want to act out of a place of selfishness, like it's all about me now and what you can do for me. But I did have to say, hey, this is not serving me, so I got to let it go, because holding on to it is doing what is it's weighing me down, because I'm carrying all this other stuff, and then I got you, and I'm trying to drag you along, and it's just a lot. And so it was a hard thing to do, and I didn't go out on New Year's Eve night. I didn't celebrate the traditional way. I was by myself, and I had to do it. And man, I think I'll never spend another New Year's Eve night alone again, just because of that. And my life changed. I mean, some courses of of the year was very hard, but they were lessons, as I said before, and I never thought 2024 would look like it did. However, it'll never look the same again. It'll never look the same again.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Bridget. So, final thoughts time. And I'm going to come to you, Vince, and Chris, and Bridget, I'll have you close us out today. Vince, final thoughts. What would you like to leave our audience with when we talk about getting to that state, as you just talked about, higher vibration, feeling abundant, being abundant? And what does that look like?
I'm going to come back to that first part that I started with on the goals. I think for me especially, I had thoughts growing up. I had dreams, and whatnot, and having that is great. Being able to be a dreamer is great. Feeling like you can accomplish the world is great. Now, what does that mean in terms of what I'm actually going to do tomorrow and next week? And that's where, for me, I don't think I was really, or maybe I was, I don't think I really understood what it meant to find or figure out what my goals are. And what that means is, well, I could say I wanna lose weight, or I wanna gain muscle, or I wanna do all these things. It's like, okay, well, do I really want? Well, I want to be healthy. Okay, well, what does healthy look like? Because the healthy is very different for everyone else. It might not be I want to be a certain weight. Might be I want to live an active lifestyle, and that could be I want to be, doing something active, whether it's hiking or hot yoga or whatever it is. And that for me is the goal. The goal is to be active. Okay, great. Well then, going back to what was said before, it's like, well, I don't have to go to the gym 4 days a week. I want to mix it up. And so I would definitely say figuring out, spending time on that, recognizing also that, asking for support, finding like how others understand that, the personal growth space is something that I, always recognized and always saw out there. I just felt like, well, I got this, so definitely asking for support and getting that support, because there's so much out there. There's great literature, there's all these other things that I went down the rabbit hole on, and yet it was not enough, or it was not enough for me to change the way I was showing up. Let's put it that way. And that's where I needed more support.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very true, right? Because that's what we talked about. It's the awareness is one thing, but it's the actual application part that matters, right? And that's where most people get stuck. Is I read the book, I read Covey, I did this, I did that. Yeah, great. I know the 7 habits, but am I actually living and
Exactly.
breathing the 7 habits? That
Exactly.
makes all the difference in the world. Chris, what about you? Final thoughts. What do you want to leave our audience with today?
Our minds have such great abilities. Um, I learn more and more about my mind and who I am on a daily basis. Um, with that being said, I've also recommitted myself to learning more about myself, being more honest about my feelings, being more authentic in how I um, how I share that, um, being true to me from the standpoint that how can I translate that to the rest of the world so it's actually digestible for me as well as them. I am coming into a stage. I'm in a stage right now where I have to make myself numero uno. I haven't always done that in the past. It's always been everybody else. I'm a selfless, at the heart of it, I'm a very selfless individual, and that's almost to my detriment. That has kept me away from a lot of things, because what that does is that selflessness also it's some of it is steeped in insecurity. So, but understanding that I do have these insecure points, and it's not a death wish. I mean, it's not like incurable cancer or something along those lines. It's actually something that can be managed. It can actually be grown, and it actually can turn into an asset. And I think the biggest thing for me every day is to figure out how to make that asset, because my challenges are my challenges every day. So it's not like my challenges change over the course of a given week. They're the same challenges, just a question of how it manifests in the physical form, or in the mind's eye, and things of that nature. And I've really worked on, because we all have these every day. There's some situation, and and I've talked about this in the past, and I'll talk about it today, is that I am now reconditioning my brain to go to the positive side of things, look for the positive outcome, and really kind of, you visit the negative outcome, but I don't stay there, because I'm hell bent on getting to the positive outcome. And that's probably the daily fight and the daily challenge for me. But as I keep going, and as I keep getting more knowledge, information, strength, um, I Vincent said something about weight earlier. Weight has always been an issue for me. I was the kid at 11 who went to Weight Watchers, and it wasn't because I was morbidly obese. I was just the chunky kid, and of course, half that problem was my folks always fed me all this fat stuff. You know what I mean? So, they didn't have dietary restrictions and good eating habits. We're Southern. I'm a Southern boy. You know what I mean? We eat grits. We eat all that fun stuff that's not good for your waistline. Um, so I so what I guess what I'm trying to get at is I try to live a healthy lifestyle on all levels. I always tell people, I eat pretty good during the week so I can eat funky so I can eat pizza on Sunday, because pizza is my thing. Pizza and donuts are my thing. But I'm proud to report that I have hit the 200-pound mark. I was as high as 235 2 years ago after my brush with uh, tumors on my uh, uh, tumors on my cornea. So I'm happy to say that I am winning that battle, and it actually empowers me. When my weight's where it's supposed to be, or even close, it makes me super. I feel like Superman, and I'm getting to the point now. Some of the clothes that I couldn't wear a while back, I can actually now wear, and it empowers me. It makes me feel good about me when I look at me in the mirror, and I'm saying, "You're the package, dude. You're the package." So now trying to translate that over into potentially whatever my next relationship is. I want to be able to offer up the gifts that I have to give. But at the end of the day, never quit on yourself. I've wanted to quit on myself many, many times over the course of the years, up and including a month ago. But I've all of a sudden I've found this resurgence of energy, this resurgence of positivity, this resurgence of I am where I'm supposed to be, and I have so much further to go. So, however you have to go about however you have to do what you have to do to get to those type of places in time, you've got to do it. We all have different ways we go about it. Brian, you go about it one way. Vince, you go about it another way. Bridget, you go about it another way. So there is no right or wrong as long as you are on the path to progress. And as I alluded to and said many, many times, and I will close with this, progress is not measured in distance, it is measured in progress.
Amen to that.
I
And
like
I'm
that.
Amen to that.
I like that.
Thank you for sharing that, Chris. And it's funny you talk about the weight thing. So a week ago, Monday, I got on my scale and I looked down and I went, what? Same thing, 200, and I haven't had 200 in at least 10 years. So yeah, it's a good feeling, to get down to that weight. So I appreciate that. Bridget, what about you? Final thoughts. What would you want to leave our audience with when we talk about abundance and growing that abundance mindset?
Okay, well, let me talk about the weight first because that's what y'all talking
Okay.
about. So I always have a story. Now I'm the like I wear a size that I wore when I was 20. Right now, I've lost a lot of weight. However, that's a great thing. However, I will admit my self confidence is the same. It did not change. I saw pictures of me when my kids were little, and ooh, I was like, I nobody told me I was that big, and everybody's like, we thought you knew. I never saw myself differently than I see myself now, and I don't know. Like I say, most people think I'm a little on the crazy side. I don't know what that says about me or what that says about how, and I'm pretty sure it says a lot about how I saw myself, right? Because I never saw I knew my sizes because they were in the clothes that I wore. But now I don't even know what size I wear anymore because I'm still thinking I wear this size, but I wear this size. But I said all that to say losing weight and whatever you have to do to transform yourself to build your confidence is great. I think everybody should do that, whatever that looks like. Like I said before as well, abundance is in the hands of the beholder just as well as scarcity is in the hands of the beholder as well. It looks different for all of us. So whatever it is to you, I my personality has always been the same, big or smaller or whatever, because I always, no matter what I was going through, I always thought that I was the package, the whole package. So, and I guess because I didn't have a choice, single mother of five, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna get up every day? You have to decide in your head, in your knower, that you're worth, this, and then at the end of that, people start to tell you, oh, I don't know how you did this, and I don't, oh, you saw this and you saw that, and you're like, okay, yeah, I guess I am, because I always thought I was. And so you have to show up as your best self, no matter what that best looks like. And because it's you, like I said before, it's you versus you. It's you versus you. So always show up as your best self, and whatever abundance is like to you, show up for that, and never look here or here, because you, whatever you have in your hand, you may trip and fall and lose it, or whatever, never look here or here, and definitely don't look behind you, because whatever you don't have in your hand, but you may not get it, because you're trying to focus on who has it and what I used to have. And don't ever do that. It's you versus you. Show up as your best self, whatever that best looks like.
Yeah, absolutely true. Yeah, and thank you for that, Bridget. And that's so true when you're talking about the abundance or the lack. It's in your hands, right? That you're controlling that. And that really just leads to my final thought, which is going to be brief, and it's in alignment with what you were just saying, and that is, it's a choice. You have the power to choose. It is in your hands. You make the choice. And my new quote unquote tagline, or however you want to say it, is choose to live, love, and lead your best life. Right. And that's exactly the approach that I think you need to take. And some people may say that comes across, well, you're being selfish, you're being self-centered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, they get a vote, and they're entitled to have that vote. But I feel as though that is how you should show up, because that is how you're going to be best for yourself, but also be better for everyone else too. Because when you're whole, when you're feeling mentally strong, physically strong, emotionally strong, spiritually strong, all of that's tied into that. You can't help but show up and be good to not only yourself, but to others. And that's what's going to make the biggest difference. So choose. It's your choice. That's all you can do. That's all I got, folks. I want to thank each and every one of you. Thanks for sharing. This was an amazing episode, and I can't see how anyone couldn't pull some great nuggets out of this to help move them forward and move from state of lack or feeling like they are in a scarcity mindset to feeling more abundant, and wrapping all of that in being authentic, true to themselves, and leading their best possible life. So until next time, everyone, take care of each other, because that's what really matters. We'll talk again soon.